Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you guys doing today?
If anyone has any questions, go ahead and use the chat or the Q&A. I'm monitoring it over here on a screen so that we can try to answer those during the session. We'll try to, get to them throughout the session, not just wait till the end. If not, we will wait till the end and get them there. So my name is Justin Hatfield. I'm the president of HECO out of Kalamazoo, Michigan.
And I'm Patrick Heiser. I'm a senior account executive with Relayer.
So I'm going to start by just talking a little bit about HECO. HECO's been in business since 1959. We were founded as Hatfield Electric Company. And we've had a lot of growth over the years as a company. But we're primarily an electric motor and predictive maintenance company. We manage over 100,000 electric motors for different clients, locations spread throughout the Midwest. As I mentioned, on the repair side, we pretty much can repair most equipment that can go down the road when it comes to electric motors. In our Lexington location, we perform pump repair there, expertise in pump repair in that location versus Kalamazoo, we specialize in motors and generators. We also sell a lot of new motors. And then in 2013, we acquired a company called Predictive Maintenance Services, Inc. Actually, Tom Spatel, who we acquired that business from, is on one of our attendees on this. And that really got us into the predictive maintenance space, primary technology being vibration. And with that came, some experience in remote condition monitoring, IoT, Industry 4.0, whatever you call it. So really since about 2005, PMSI, before it had been part of HECO, had been down this path. We've used a few different systems from then to now. What we've seen is that these systems were always focused on selling a sensor, hardware, and we looked at, in the last year, we looked at this from going from, the sensors, the hardware. That's really not the solution. That is a tool that we utilize. When we sell a vibration route, do we go in and talk about how great our analyzer is? No, we're talking about the value that you can get from that data in which we collect and analyze. So we're saying remote condition monitoring should be the same thing as that. And let's provide more value to our clients. And as we were exploring all these solutions, there's always a new sensor. There's always this new shiny object that's out there that we wanted to chase, a different frequency range, a different this. So instead of focusing on that, let's focus on outcomes. Let's focus on the value in which sensorizing equipment and getting data, an immense amount of data from that machine, the value that you can take from that. So that's really what we're here to talk about today. We believe we've come up with an incredible solution that can do that, and that is called Apollo. So, the play on the name here is that, the Apollo missions essentially revolutionized the way we look at space. The Apollo missions, for those that don't know, are the missions that got us to the moon. Apollo from HECO, which is powered by Relayer, will help to reshape how we look at industrial equipment and Industry 4.0.
So Apollo is really taking this holistic approach to maintenance, and Apollo is really going from, in the industry, we've seen for a long time that there's break and fix model. And as we move into preventative and planned maintenance, we move into this moment in time where everybody starts looking at time-based PM. What we're really doing with Apollo is we're moving into truly predictive and prescriptive maintenance. So when we partnered with HECO, what we were looking for is bringing enough data off of each piece of equipment to actually become predictive. And what we start with is vibration analysis that HECO had already done that gives you about 10% visibility of what we're actually capable of predicting. And through Apollo, you automatically move to a 50% mark after about 3 weeks of having an asset online. And then as we move farther down the predictive model, the more information that we gather off that asset actually gets you to about a 90% predictability within its first year forward.
Let's be clear, all of these business models or all these maintenance strategies have a place within most plants. A lot of plants do. You have machines that make sense to run to failure. Maybe your redundant system, maybe they're not critical to your operation. Maybe they're very easy to replace, easy to install. You have plenty of things that you're still going to have to perform preventive maintenance, PMs on equipment. And there's still a place for route-based condition monitoring. This is taking all of those and being able to apply them effectively is what Apollo really allows you to do. And then ultimately leveraging that with insurance mechanisms and guarantees that you can put into place.
So Apollo Works is giving you actual tangibles you can actually get out of Apollo once you bring an asset on board. And each one of these quadrants actually builds upon itself. So initially you're going to receive asset health monitoring, and then you're going to also see detailed inspection reports, as you do with a lot of other data collection companies and with reporting companies. The difference is that you're also going to bring on board HECO's service and domain expertise and the ability for them to actually act upon that, upon those reports that you're going to see. And then what we do with that data is we create a performance guarantee. So Apollo actually, if it does not warn you about a failure prior to the failure, we will actually cover that repair, parts and labor.
Which is big. I mean, that's a very big statement to be able to make, and that's where Apollo is, these 4 quadrants. It isn't just sensorizing equipment and monitoring it through a dashboard. That is one piece of it. That is how we enable this outcome that we're coming up with. And that is that you are going to know of failures before they occur. And if we don't alert you, it's covered. So there's some meat to Apollo that we haven't seen in the marketplace today.
Exactly. This isn't about a UI. This isn't about a sensor or a new way of taking data off of a piece of machinery. This is about actually guaranteeing the performance and the output of your particular facility or asset.
Yeah, and let's not discredit the sensor. The sensor gathers a lot of data, but you also need that domain expertise, which our predictive team brings into the equation to be able to really look at that data and really make decisions off of that, take action and put it into place.
I think that there's another portion of this that also needs to be said, is the fact that Apollo, unlike a lot of other remote condition monitoring systems out there, this is a truly invisible system. So HECO is going to be the one, and Relayer is going to be the one that's going to come out and help you make sure that you have sensor connectivity. You're no longer going to have more work that's brought out of remote condition monitoring. You're just going to get the value out of it and then the guarantee of performance.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to worry if that sensor is no longer reporting, or that's our problem. Our service is to provide you that guarantee, essentially, that alerts before something fails. If the sensor's not working, we can't provide the solution that we're providing you here through Apollo. So it's worry-free, essentially. That it's like the way Patrick said it is the best way to. It's invisible. You don't have to worry about it. What you see is results and alerts saying that, hey, there's something wrong with this machine.
And throughout my career, throughout my career in IoT, that's really one of the other big portions of Apollo that makes this completely different. Is that invisibility is just providing that value. There's no more headaches of going around and trying to meander around and finding where the best place to put a gateway is. This isn't what this is. This is purely a performance guarantee, along with having HECO to be able to pick the perfect part to replace a bearing, for instance.
Exactly. Making sure that you're covered when you need help.
Now, this is truly transformative, and I think it's really important to make these big statements of we're going to minimize unplanned downtime, optimize planned downtime. But each one of these plays off of the fact, and they reinforce the fact that through Apollo, each one of these big points is actually going to happen. The more data that we collect off the asset through Apollo, the more that we're going to be able to minimize your unplanned downtime. And the reason why we're going to be able to do that is we're going to be able, the more data that we pull, the larger gap that we can give you, the larger warning we can give you, because we have a lot of data to go off of. Now, we can optimize your planned downtime. That means that each asset we're going to be able to stage on top of itself, so you know right when that's going to fail, so you can plan that downtime and optimize your planned downtime, saving repair costs and staffing and labor. We're going to, and that once again leads to my next point. You're going to reduce your maintenance and repair costs. Reducing your maintenance and repair costs is something that everybody's looking to do, and we usually do that through timed PMs and through.
Yeah.
But this is truly going in and figuring out exactly what's going to happen.
And if you mix that with the optimized planned downtime, so we have a client that we were talking about this with just a couple of weeks ago, and it was, you know, you have machines fail, so you have a history in your plant of things that have happened over the years. Generally, one of the solutions when upper management gets involved is say, how do we stop this from ever happening again?
Yeah.
You know, as a manager here, that's one of the things I do, right? If something happens, Jason's sitting over here, it's Patel, who's our director of reliability. He's shaking his head yes, because if something happens, I'm going to say, well, how do we stop this from happening again? Well, in plants, if a machine failed, add more PMs, add more things. We're going to check it more often. We're going to grease it more often. We're going to, you know, do this. We're going to do this. But how much of that is overkill? With Apollo, you're able to really focus in on that, knowing that you're going to get that alert, knowing that if something does go happen to it, that you're going to get your alert and be able to respond quick enough to stop the failure. If you're just doing PMs, you could be wasting money on PMs that maybe don't need to be done. Now, we don't know your machines yet until we put Apollo on it, but those are, you know, say after a year of having Apollo on there, especially, we're going to be able to look at those types of things. We're going to know that equipment, and hopefully in a year we want to provide some other guarantees that can go on to Apollo, not just the unalerted event, such as, I mean, we're not promising this at this point, but an uptime guarantee. Having this data, we can start to create these things so you can reduce your risk by saying, you know, I'm going to cut that PM that we do every single month on that machine because we did that as a result of a failure. But now we have the data to where we don't need to do that all the time, and we can save that money. We just freed up labor. We just freed up staffing in your facility,
and we decrease the amount of time that your facility has to be down every year for those big maintenance projects.
Exactly.
We were just talking about this earlier today, actually, where you're talking about a month of downtime. Well, what if we could cut that down to 2 weeks?
Exactly.
Increase your production levels, and that's what we're really empowering you through with Apollo. And that happens, honestly, because it takes domain expertise in every single aspect to allow Apollo to come to market this way. So we have HECO here, who are 50 plus years of experience in maintaining electric motors and equipment. They have a true domain expertise. Relayer, who I represent, we have an expertise in IoT and predictive analytic models. And then we, through each one of these steps, are enabled through HSB to give business outcome warranties.
Yeah, you have the experts in each individual area. We're not trying to be an IoT company.
Yeah.
We're not, you know, people who can, you know, code and do that type of things. That's not who we are. We're machine people. You know, I'm a motor person. You know, that's what my family is. That's the business I grew up in. We happen to transition more into a predictive maintenance in addition to that, equipment management, all the other things we do. But we're still equipment people. That's our expertise. Relayer's not equipment people.
No, we're IoT.
They care about the data. They care about those. And HSB, that's an insurance company. You know, so we're bringing these things together to create a very, very unique solution that is unfound in the marketplace today.
Exactly, because we all have our domain expertise, and by doing so, we're bringing an entirely transformative product to market.
Yeah. Looks like we do have a question here from Timothy. What hardware installation is required in a typical integrally geared compressor?
I guess it's going to be.
I'll look at Jason on that.
Yeah,
He's hey, you can't see him, but he's here next to me.
He's the ghost of all technical knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to be wanting to look at the drawings to find where the bearing locations are at. So depending on if it's a screw compressor or a rotary screw, having to put sensors at the main bearing locations to be able to monitor to look for those failure patterns that would show up. So the idea is we put as many sensors on as we need to actually get the data so we can actually give you a predictive model.
Hope that answers. If you have a follow-up question, go ahead and throw it in there or the chat.
So I think Justin.
Yeah, so this is kind of how it works to an extent. You know, kind of we're the front lines. We're the people that, once again, we're machine people. So, and then Relayer empowers us to provide that unwarned repair event guarantee. So they're going to enable us to do that. And what enables Relayer to do that is HSB or Hartford Steam Boiler.
Exactly.
So once again, this is showing how it works in practice from an event, a machine that's running fine to all of a sudden having an alarm. The alarm is sent out, and once again, and then you can take action from that. So
I think there's another portion of this that actually makes the Apollo program a lot different than any other solution out there, is that this is also an augmented hybrid AI system.
yeah.
So what we're going to do is when we actually enable the asset to be brought online, there's going to be these conditions, these criticality conditions that are going to need to be checked. And so when HECO goes and checks that specific piece of equipment, or one of your maintenance repairs staff does, they can actually go into the UI and actually teach the AI that's embedded in our system what is actually happening on that piece of equipment. Thus, it's going to make that an actual learned asset, a smart asset, if you will. And that's something that's really been missing from the field in my experience, in my 14 years of experience in IoT, is that we were always missing, number one, the guarantee that Apollo provides.
Exactly.
But number two, the fact that we're also hybridizing AI, where we're inputting real pieces of data from someone actually going and checking that piece of equipment and making the AI smarter.
Yeah, and when there is an issue, our technicians, our expertise is going to continue to help to teach that AI and help it keep growing its knowledge.
Exactly.
And that's why we need them, because I can't even spell AI. So looks like we did have a follow-up question from Timothy. Does HECO work with the OEM, or is this done through the plant? Typically, we're going to be working with the plant here. If it's about finding those bearing locations, it's going to be whichever path we can get the information, really. There's machine drawings or things from the OEM if available, if not history in the plant, if not just our experience with equipment. Did I miss anything there, Jason?
That's about it.
So early recognition. So how does success look with Apollo? Truly, success is the recognition of anomalies and the understanding of what those anomalies are. But the biggest portion of this, and the biggest portion of what success looks like, is actually being able to give you real recommendations based off of real data that we've verified. So Apollo allows you to have real verified data.
And that's the point. That's why the data is, that's why we can have a guarantee that's tied to it, because, we're using sensors, but we've essentially, what Relayer has done working with HSB is verify that data, that you can trust the data coming from this sensor. That's something to be said with all of these sensor manufacturers coming out. I mean,
there's everybody.
Every day. If you go to a maintenance or reliability conference of any kind, you're going to walk past 100 sensor booths, and it's vibration and temperature, vibration and temperature. We gather vibration and temperature, but over time, we're hoping to expand that. We're hoping to look at more and more conditions to get smarter and smarter to bridge that gap from 10% predictable to 50% predictable to 99.99% predictable.
And all that is collecting more and more data.
More and more data and getting smarter and smarter.
Yeah. And that's also not being, tied in. Where Apollo is very different and where Relayer is very different is we don't tie ourselves into one sensor. We tie ourselves into verifiable sensors, and we can verify the data. And so one of the big key elements of success is not only the fact of being able to give you accurate recommendations on this bearing, but also eventually getting to the point where we can actually tell you what bearing is going to give you the longest lifespan.
Exactly.
Because we're going to be collecting enough metadata that we're going to be able to actually make actionable decisions for you and your business to continue production and increase production and increase throughput. If there's ever a point where we do not give you that unplanned downtime warning, then we cover it.
Exactly. And keep in mind the value of when it is a motor, when it is something that we're involved in, and it's going to come into our repair shop, we're going to be able to verify that information. We're going to be looking at that information, and we're going to be able to take additional steps when we're involved in that actual corrective action, or actually the physical repair of that equipment or one of our partners. It could be in the field too, if it's a field service type repair.
So machine health life cycles, as I'm an IoT company, I'm going to rely on Justin to expand upon what we're really trying to do here is actually keep that useful life, that consistency. We're trying to make that as long as humanly possible.
Yeah, we want to do things right in the beginning, right, to avoid early life issues, but we're going to learn during that early life period. And then during the useful life is where we're going to truly be monitoring. We're going to be monitoring what's going on. And then there is going to be a wear out period. So we can start to see that wear out period. We can start to see what's going on, and we can start to predict, when that's going to get to a failure state so that you can avoid that in the first place. And really, it's about getting to the left side of this curve. It's about looking at identifying changes in vibration, which is in red right in the middle. It's seeing that quickly, seeing that right away so that you avoid getting to that unplanned outage. So you may have changes in vibration. It may lead to doing preventive maintenance at your next outage. So then you're going to move it back to the left and keep it in that normal operation phase as much as it can be, and really minimize that unexpected downtime.
Apollo really allows you to not only be preventative, but also allows you to be prescriptive. It's going to allow you the granularity of picking out exactly what we need to do to fix it, instead of overdoing it and spending so much time overdoing that maintenance or repairs, just saving you on repair costs, saving you headache down the line.
Yeah.
So we've used some analysis from the industry to come up with reductions in saving per year per facility, and that's what these really are. This is what Apollo can potentially save a facility: is $700,000 in unplanned downtime costs. It's a 50% reduction is what we've seen from our experience in the field.
And this isn't just us. This is trade journals and things. I mean. I'll tell you, from a HECO standpoint, we never would have been able to come up with these numbers independently if it wasn't working with Relayer, because these guys have these PhDs and all these guys that are geniuses and these things that go and do the research in order to look at what truly is that value that we can say. And so we're saying that we think we can cause a 50% reduction in unplanned downtime.
One of the big ones that you're actually going to see is not only the fact that there's going to be a reduction with Apollo in your manual monitoring costs of about $12,000, but you're also going to increase the number of reads that you're actually getting. So through working with Jason and Justin, we figured out that in a normal vibration route, you're getting about 1,720 sensor reads per asset per year on a normal route based, on a
monthly route.
Yeah. And when you actually move to Apollo, you're looking at about 1.7 million reads per year. So that gives you a lot more visibility as to what's going on with that machine, because it's like having a vibration analyst standing next to that asset every 5 minutes taking a read.
I like to use that to compare it to just sensor systems, because lots of sensor systems gather that amount of data. What are they doing with it? With us, with the AI, we're actually learning that. We're constantly learning that machine and getting smarter and smarter. So that data is useful versus that data just sitting somewhere and only being used for a trending purpose to then find an alert. It's much more than that when it comes to Apollo and the AI that Relayer is bringing us.
Which allows us to give a guarantee, which is also going to reduce repair costs, because we're not looking at this as a catastrophic failure at this point in time, or a break and fix model. We're actually predicting what is going to fail, or if there's a condition fault there.
Yeah, the example of that is saying that, take a motor, for example, that a motor fails and, the bearing is bad and the bearing destroys itself. Next thing you know, the rotor drops, rubs the stator, causes a rewind. Next thing you know, a repair that might have been, $5,000, if you just put new bearings in it, now becomes a $15,000 rewind. Plus core damage and all these other things. So you're able to avoid catastrophic failure repairs, which cost a lot more, and rush time. Think about those. If you're paying rush fees to get things repaired, if you're planning things out better, you get to avoid those rush fees. In addition to this, once again, these numbers are based on a lot of data. Maybe you don't agree with those. We will actually come out and do a value questionnaire to figure out what your downtime costs you. What are you spending in manual monitoring, either route-based or this? Once again, it doesn't mean you got to cut that, but what we're looking, these are based on industry averages and how things can be cut.
Be a really good understanding of how motor maintenance is going to be optimized through Apollo. See, we know that motor A, for instance, C, E, and G are all good and no risk of downtime. Now you can actually go and you can look at B, D, and F and start to plan those downtimes and stage that downtime to then optimize the repair.
Prioritize them properly.
Yeah, and by prioritizing them correctly, this is data-informed motor service, right? So this is a value driver. for anybody in the industry, in any facility. This allows you to actually plan out when your downtime is going to be, so there is no unplanned downtime and there's no loss of days of work.
Well, related to these ones.
Yes,
There's going to be a 50% reduction in unplanned downtime. We know that we can't control operator error and things like that, but hopefully if there's an operator error, we can at least alert you before it gets to a catastrophic failure.
And so the model really looks is what we started to look at when we partnered with HECO was the total cost of ownership of any asset, of any rotating equipment asset. What we started to really see is there isn't just an initial cost or the operation or maintenance or repair. There's also your downtime costs, your production loss costs, your, what do all of these have in common is that with Apollo, we're going to reduce the operational costs, we're going to reduce maintenance and repair, and then we're going to really reduce downtime to just being plain downtime, and guaranteeing the fact that if we do not catch it, we will cover it.
Yeah, and remember, this is about optimizing all of this. It's not about throwing away everything you've ever done in your plant. That's not a practice that we want to take. So I always use the example of a route-based and Apollo. There is no reason why route-based and Apollo can't live together. You have plenty of machines in your plant that don't justify, or you wouldn't do anything with that data. If you got the alert, 90 days ahead of time, you might not do anything with it. Those might still, but they're still critical to your operation. Those might be more of a candidate to stay on a route-based, a quarterly or monthly route-based, but not have an outcome guarantee from that. So we believe in that there is a mix here. There's a blend here. Yeah, you still need PMs, you still need route-based, you still need certain things for your plant. Looks like we have a question here, and if this monitoring is for motors only or pumps, fans, etc. Also, no, it's for the system. So when we say an asset, what we're talking about is a motor and whatever it drives. So we have a system where we're doing this where it's actually for each machine, each asset, there's actually how many bearings, Jason? The one down south. I mean, you're looking at 5-6 bearings per 10 bearings per machine. So yeah, and we're going to cover that entire machine because it's all these belted and pulleyed and all these things going to other stuff. So we're going to monitor that whole system, which is achieving the result that plant needs. Another question looks similar. Will this service cover pumps, gearboxes, air compressors? Yes. How about route-based IR monitored equipment such as switchgear? Yeah, so there's an IR is not involved yet at this point. It's vibration and temperature right now. But once again, Apollo is, the whole plan is that Apollo can be expanded upon. Apollo right now is focusing on vibration and temperature. Vibration is our primary predictive technology and probably one of the most widely used, if not the widely used by predictive technology. And then it says, how long will monitoring kick in? How long will monitoring need to be in place before the insurance coverage kicks in?
That is 3 weeks.
So a 3-week period to learn the machine before we can have the unalerted event guarantee.
We call that a warm-up period. So that warm-up period is just understanding that piece of machinery, what vibrations are what, and actually understanding every piece of data that we can gather off that asset. By doing that, it's usually about 2 to 3 weeks, about 21 days from the day that you onboard that asset. So when that asset spins up and is ready to go, then we're going to be able to empower it through that business guarantee after 21 days on. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to warn you about critical events prior to. What that means is that that's just a guarantee. From day one, the second that you onboard that asset, we're talking about 50% predictability immediately. So we're going to know if there's a problem with the drive end or a bearing.
You're going to get pretty much what every other sensor manufacturer can give you from day one.
Except health asset monitoring, it's still going to warn you. We just don't know the machine quite yet.
Yeah, we go back to those 4 quadrants. That you're going to get parts of those 4 quadrants are going to come up over time while it learns the system. And once again, we're hoping that a year out, we're able to provide other unique guarantees such as an uptime guarantee. That's not here yet. We have to learn the machines before we can do something like that.
Exactly.
But that's our intent. That's where we plan on going with this.
So to give you a really good understanding of what an initial sales journey for Apollo looks like. So this is truly considered what a service overview presentation would be. So for a lot of you guys, this would actually cover step 1 and we move into a site survey. Site survey is where we send engineers out and we send staff out to actually come and look at your critical assets. At that moment in time, when we're looking at your critical assets, we're looking at an initial 10 to 30 assets, which you know that you want to start with, that you have an idea that you want to start with.
We want to start small and prove the
Yeah.
concept with you. Right? If we come in and say we're going to do this on everything, we know that will lead to issues. We know that there's going to be connectivity issues. But if we start small and do this in batches, that's how we can effectively go out and install these.
We designed this as a crawl, walk, run situation.
Exactly.
And it's really like the first 10 to 30 assets is really understanding how your facility functions. And then what we do is we actually help you with the value questionnaires. We come in and we start asking real detailed questions about, what KPIs do you guys look at? Do you guys actually, how do you value or how do you acknowledge your downtime? And who does that? And we work through all of those KPIs together, and then we build a service proposal around it. After we deliver a service proposal, then we move into a PO and a contract afterwards.
Exactly, but we have to follow these steps in order to do this properly, and that value questionnaire is a very important piece if we don't do that. Now, we can use our standard numbers, the numbers that you saw, and factor those in your plan. Maybe you don't have a clue. That's fine. Many don't, but you know that it's there. We want to ask you value questions, especially if you question those numbers. If you question those numbers, you think, man, my plant's a lot different than that. Those just don't make sense for me. That's fine. That's great. But we want to truly understand how your plant operates, what your cost of downtime is, and those things.
And validating those value pools really helps with that.
It also helps us because we don't want to we don't want to install Apollo and have it not work. We want to install Apollo on assets where it will bring you value. So it's part of a win-win scenario for us, is that we're going to apply it where it should be applied within your facility.
Exactly.
And one thing, starting 10 to 30 assets and start critical. So that part of the value, but it's beyond that. Each plant has that equipment that you lose sleep over, that your problem childs, things like that. Now we're gonna be alerting you of those, and we're gonna be learning those. It doesn't mean we're gonna have the answer from day one, right? But we're gonna start to be able to alert you and see those changes. And then hopefully with our domain expertise, with Jason's group, our repair team, our field service team, all of those teams be able to really dig in and hope to figure out what the actual issue is and solve that.
And then it no longer becomes a problem child. So that's a great part about Apollo, is it gives us the visibility to actually make that not a problem child anymore.
Yeah, it looks like we have another question. Do you have a lot of smaller companies using this service? Yeah, I mean, we have a client that's using this that only has a little set of critical machines. They aren't a big, huge industrial complex with thousands and thousands. It really depends on the criticality of your machine, and if that went down, what would it cost you? So your size doesn't matter. Even the size of the equipment doesn't necessarily matter. What truly matters is that if it's critical to your operation, it might make sense to install this on a small little piece of equipment that you can hold in your hand, because it's that critical to your operation. If that fails, you're shut down and you're sending people home. You're flying in parts from all over the world to get back up and running. All those things we all do in the maintenance world to get back up and running. So yeah, it doesn't matter your size, and it doesn't matter. It really focuses on criticality. Do you have equipment so this can be done in hazardous locations? I don't know if I necessarily.
What kind of hazardous?
No, explosion-proof locations. Yeah, I believe that we have sensors available that are a thing, and that's one piece of looking at this, not from, oh, we're selling you a sensor. We're going to find the solution. So if you have those, I mean, in all honesty, we've looked at a few different sensor options for different plants. We were on a roof the other day where you had perfect cell signal. So we're actually looking at a sensor that has the cell signal, cell chip and signal built into the sensor itself.
Apollo is not a hardware solution. Apollo is a warrantable business outcome solution. So we're using technology to enable us to provide you with a warranty and guarantees, and actually give you those production guarantees.
Exactly. Let's say we have another question here. If a pump or driven equipment fails that is monitored by Apollo, where will that pump or driven equipment go for repair? So the whole idea is, we're not saying, obviously if it's a motor, we would take it. If it's a pump and you're in a service area of our Lexington location, it would go there. But if it's equipment that you have a preferred vendor for, it's not saying that it has to be done by us or else. It's literally covered to do that. That repair might be on site, by something that we might not be able to do, or
Yeah.
you know, that's not being dictated at this point. If it's related to where HECO can do it, yes, we're going to take it and we're going to repair that and provide that service for you. But if we don't, we'll work with whatever partner makes sense to do that. And really, you'll be the person helping to facilitate that repair. You got your alert that it's bad. Go ahead and get it repaired.